Hey guys, I'm Drew Cook. We're here with BassResource, and we're going to talk about how I move forward and plan and attack a summertime tournament. Obviously, what I do for a living, we fish multi-day events. That's a little bit different than, your weekend guy that's fishing one-day tournaments and stuff like that. But I'm gonna run down how I do it, and the way that I go into a summertime event is I'm going to first find where they spawn. Now I know where they have been. I know where they have been. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do as much map study as I can. It can be on a graph or a paper map, whatever. I don't use the paper maps as much as I used to, because we have apps on our phone. I have Navionics on my phone, satellite images. Everything is so far advanced that I can go on my phone, mark stuff, and transfer it to my unit. Just makes life a lot easier. But you want to find high percentage areas that are offshore. I really like to find what I call tweener holes. So this is the in between where they spawn and the typical summertime ledge, and these are going to be in that 6 to 10 foot, not deep stuff but not shallow stuff, and a lot of times that is overlooked stuff that really can help you be successful in these tournaments. But once you find where the fish are spawning, the creek channel, if you found them, they were spawning in the creek channel bends, the points, things like that. But those are going to be the first things they get on after they get done spawning. But I never really don't give the shallow stuff their due. Okay, so you still, after say early summer, you've still got the brim and bluegill are up there spawning, and there's a lot of fish that don't go out there right after they spawn. They'll get those easy meals. They'll sit on brim beds. My home Lake Seminole is really big summertime on the brim bed deal. You're looking for brim beds, and it's kind of like sight fishing. You visually see the fish that are on these brim beds, and then you come back and throw top waters, a wacky rig, things like that. But in the summer, a lot of times you'll find that there's a funk, a post-spawn funk. So you can still catch them on crankbaits and moving fast and things like that whenever they get out there on the ledges, but you're gonna have to slow down. You're gonna have to throw your Texas rigs, your shaky heads, your Carolina rigs, a jig, drop shot, things like that, in conjunction with your power fishing fun stuff, your big deep crankbaits, your spoons, hair jigs, and big swim baits on jig heads, things like that. You're gonna have to have an arsenal whenever they get out there. A, they're in that funk, and B, there's always people on every lake that cannot wait for them to get offshore. So when they get ganged up and all that stuff, they love that, catching them back to back to back to back to back. And now the electronics that we have, it's fairly simple compared to what it was. So these fish are getting fished for the day they get there, the week they get there, getting beat pretty hard. And sometimes you'll see, like an example of what I'm fixing to say is Lake Eufaula. For a couple years, Lake Eufaula, after the fish would spawn, they would go out to the ledges and they would just get their brains beat in. And after about a month out there, the mayfly hatch would happen. The fish would actually leave the ledges and go back shallow, and that's why the brush pile deal there is so huge, because they had somewhere to stop, in between. But going back to the tweener thing, shell beds are probably my favorite thing to look for then. And you used to have to throw a Carolina rig or something, you know, drag it to be able to find the shell beds. Now with the electronics that we have, it's a lot easier. And if there's current involved anywhere, you're gonna look and find places that the current hits the hardest, and then I find places that the current hits the least. You know, so down a river, if in a bend, obviously the downriver bend is gonna, the side is gonna get hit the best. You know, there's gonna be more current hitting that than anything else. And that's where you're gonna find those like typical Tennessee River, you know, 300, 400, 500 fish schools that you're used to hearing about. But the smaller places, especially if you're fishing a one-day tournament, and when I say smaller places, I'm talking about, you know, shell beds that are the size of this boat, you know, 20 foot, 30 foot, probably don't have as many fish on them, obviously, but they're unpressured fish, they're easier to catch, and a lot of times, you know, all the big ones don't swim offshore. Stumps that time of year is another thing that I really like to focus on. They can be on a flat, you know, say there's a 7 or 8 foot flat. Those stumps are going to be key, because the lake that I grew up on, Seminole and Lake Talquin, I have never caught I caught a lot of 10-pound fish in Lake Talquin, or 10 pluses. I never caught one over 10 foot deep. And they've always been shallow, and even the ones in the summer and stuff like that after the spawn, not spawning, they've all been shallower than 10 foot. I've caught a bunch of 7s and 8s and stuff, you know, out there in that 15 to 20 foot, but no big ones. And I think a lot of times those really big fish, they're not community fish, so they don't want to be around a bunch of 3 and 4 pounders or 2 pounders and just a bunch of them. They kind of want to be by themselves. There might be 1 or 2 that are on this one stump. And fishing a one-day event, all you got to catch is 5. So those are things that I look for, and you can have a lot of success for it. A 4-day event, you can't find that. You have to find somewhere that has a really good population of fish, and somewhere that you can hope that they're coming to you. So like as you know, it warms up and, you know, passing the moon, they're still steadily feeding offshore, or funneling offshore. Those are the places that you're going to have, you know, to win a 4-day event. And now, you know, we've had ledge tournaments in the past couple of years with, you know, the advancements in the electronics. A lot of summertime ledge fishing tournaments get won in 10 foot or less, and that is, you know, something that a lot of people just kind of overlook. You know, oh well, that was just one spot, but it's repetitively happening, and it's because of how easy it is. The mapping, the side imaging, the sonar period, it has helped and made stuff so much easier than it was back in the day. And those shallower places that not a lot of people are looking are the places that are going to excel whenever you have, you know, 100+ boats and you're trying to win multi-day tournaments. Single-day tournaments, you know, it's not as different, but whenever you do find yourself in a ledge fishing summertime, you know, tournament, you have to play the finesse game a lot, because you're sharing water with somebody, or you know for a fact that somebody just fished it before you got there. So you have to have your drop shots and your shaky heads and your Ned rigs and things like that. But a lot of times you'll see when there is a big school and they get beat on really good, they'll suspend, and it makes it extremely difficult to catch them. And that's where, like, we always saw Kevin Van Dam, you know, those guys using the hair jig, catching them, they're, you know, suspended up off the bottom. And now, I mean, you have Damiki rig, you know, moping, you know, things like that, and enter forward facing sonar. Now they're not as hard to catch when they suspend, but it still makes life difficult whenever they do that. So you have to keep that in mind. You got to have an arsenal prepared for one of those summertime ledge fishing tournaments, but don't leave out the shallow stuff, you know, the brim beds and stumps and things like that, and docks, really good early in the summer. So this is going to be the tournament that you're going to rig probably every rod you have. You're going to have something on everything, and you got to be ready for everything. You got to be ready for the fish to be, you know, come up busting bait right out there, because that happens a lot that time of year. They're chasing bait, shallow points, things like that. So you got to have something that you can throw really far, really quick, ready to go, and be prepared for everything. Find where they spawn and go to in between where they spawn and where the main, most obvious offshore places are, and look for those little hidey holes where, if there's current, you know, where the current's hitting it and where the current's not hitting anything. So that's, you know, behind something that's breaking the current, and this will help you be more efficient with your time on the water. The maps, study your maps, and have fun.